Good morning, all of you. Very good morning to Priya, Sonali, Nagma, Sarish, Sefali, Parveen, Harish, Virendra, Sarli, Iram, Munir. Welcome to the online platform of civils. And in geography, we were discussing about the soils. Okay, and so far we are in the soils found in India. Oh, sorry. Today's class is history. Okay, first class is history. Sorry. Now first I am going to discuss about. Now we are in history. The first class is of class of history. Okay. So we were discussing about the constitutional history of India. Okay, constitutional history of India. Okay, and under this topic we have discussed about the act. We have discussed from regulating act which was passed in 1773 to the Council Act 1861. Okay. Now today I am going to discuss two acts. The first is Indian Council Act 1892. Okay, Indian Council Act 1892, and the second will be the Government of India Act or Morley Minto Reform. Okay, the Government of India Act or Indian Council Act 1909. Okay, Morley Minto Reform or Morley Minto Reform. Okay, or Indian Council Act 1909. Okay, Indian Council Act 1909. Okay, so today we will discuss these two acts. Okay, and tomorrow we will complete after the discussion of 1919 Act and 1935 Act. Okay, so first of all, Indian Council Act 1892. Okay, after 1861. Okay, after the Council Act of 1861, the Act of 1892 was passed by British Parliament. Okay, now this act is very important for two or three reasons. Okay, the first of all, this was the first act which was responsible behind the starting of, means by this act the election process began in India. Okay, this is the most important fact about this, about the Indian Council Act 1892. Okay, Indian Council Act 1892. Okay, now what were the provisions? Okay, the provisions of this act. The first provision was this act enlarged the Executive Council of Governor General or Viceroy. Okay, the purpose of this act was, the first provision was, this act enlarged the Council of Governor General or Viceroy. Okay, by addition of not less than trained by addition of not less than 10 members and not more than 16 members. Okay, and not less than 10 members and not more than, okay, not more than 16 members. Okay, so this is the first most important point. The purpose of this act was enlargement of the Council of Governor General. Okay, and we all know when the Council of Governor General increase in Council of Governor General was also responsible behind the increase in the Central Legislative Assembly or Council, because the Central Legislative Council or Assembly was formed by the addition of Governor General and Council, Governor General and its councils plus other members. So whenever the number of Governor General and Council was increased, okay, the number of this assembly was, Central Legislative Assembly was also enlarged. So the first provision was this act enlarged the Council of Governor General by addition of not less than 10 and not more than 16 members. Okay, since this was enlarged, automatically the Central Legislative Council was also enlarged. This is, we have discussed about that this council, Central Legislative Council was formed by the act of which act? Now I want answer from all of you. By which act Central Legislative Assembly or Council was formed? I want answer from all of you. Which act was responsible behind the formation of Central Legislative Council? I want answer from all of you. Okay, I want answer from all of you. Very good, Nagma and Saris Khan. This council, Central Legislative Council, was formed by the Charter Act 1853. Okay, and whenever the Council of Governor General was enlarged, automatically this was also enlarged. Okay, now tell me one thing. By which act Governor General empowered? By which act Governor General empowered to create legislative assembly in provinces? I want answer from all of you. Very good, Sefali, Nagma. Now I also want answer from all of you. By which act Governor General was empowered to create assemblies in provinces? Very good, 1861. Okay, very good. Now, so first act was, the first provision of this act was enlargement of Council of Governor General. Since this was enlarged, automatically this was also enlarged. Okay, now the second, since 1860, by the act of 1861, the Governor General or Viceroy of India was empowered to create assemblies in provinces. Okay, this act also enlarged. This act also enlarged the assemblies of province. Okay, assemblies of provinces. Okay, this act also enlarged the assemblies of provinces. Okay, now for Bombay and Madras, for Bombay and Madras. This assembly means the province assembly, legislative assembly of province was enlarged in Bombay and Madras. The legislative assembly of Bombay and Madras was enlarged by addition of not more than 8, not less than 8 and not more than 20 members. Okay, not less than 8 members and not more than 20 members. Number 1 point. This act was also responsible behind enlargement of province, the assemblies of provinces. Okay, for Bombay and Madras, okay, the assemblies of Bombay and Madras was enlarged by addition of not less than 8 members and not more than 20 members. Okay, for Bengal it was fixed to 20. The maximum was fixed to 20. Okay, and for Northwestern province, okay, and for Northwestern frontier province and Awadh, okay, for the provinces of Northwest frontier province and Awadh, this was fixed to 15 members. Okay, these numbers are not very important, but remember one thing, this act enlarged the Central Legislative Assembly or Council, and apart from that it also enlarged the assemblies of provinces by addition of new members. Okay, so is it clear to all of you? These 2 points are clear to all of you? Okay, now the third most important point of this act was the principle of election was added. Okay, this means first time in India, okay, the word election was, since it was not mentioned, but the election process of India begins with the passage of this act. Okay, so this act is important because the principle of election was conceded to limited extent. Okay, so what this Indian Council Act was the first act that incorporate the idea of election. Okay, but to a limited extent, and those who were elected were not called, since election was not there. Remember one thing, election word was not mentioned in this act, but the principle of election was the first time conceded by this act. Okay, election word was not mentioned, but those who were elected, okay, were also not called elected members, but they were called the nominees. Okay, they were called the nominees of the Governor General. So 2 or 3 point is very important. The principle of the system of election was adopted in India by the Act of Council Act 1892, but it was very limited. Okay, the word election was not mentioned, but those who were elected, because the process started, those who were elected were also not called an elected member, but they were called nominees of Governor General, not elected members, but called nominees of Governor General. So this is very important. The principle of election was incorporated by this act, but the word election was not mentioned, and those who were elected, just like the process of election, the word election was not mentioned, but the principle was applied. Okay, and those who were elected were not called as elected member, but they were called as the nominees. Okay, the nominees of Governor General. I hope it is clear to all of you. Nominees of, in place of elected representative, in place of elected representative, the word nominees of Governor General was used for the elected members. Okay, so this is the most important feature of this Indian Council Act, because this was the first act that incorporated the principle of election. Okay, but election word was not mentioned, and those who were elected were not termed as elected representative, but they were called as nominees of Governor General. Okay, I hope it is clear. Two things is very important. First, this act was basically passed by Parliament to enlarge the Governor General Council, and when the Governor General Council was enlarged, okay, automatically it also affected the size of Central Legislative Assembly. Okay, second, it also enlarged the assemblies of provinces by adding new members. Third was the principle of election was incorporated in this act, but the word election was not mentioned, and elected representative, all the process was taking place just like the process of election, but the elected representative were not called as the elected representative, but they were used, but the word nominees of Governor General was used in place of elected representative. Is it okay to all of you? Okay, now the fourth most important point. Okay, but remember one thing, women were not guaranteed to vote. This is also very important. Now, the fourth most important point, the Council Act of 1892 enlarged the function of, very important line, enlarged the functions of the councils. Not only the size was enlarged, but also enlarged the function. Okay, and the members were empowered to ask questions. This is also very important line. The member were empowered. Those who were the member of council were empowered to ask questions, but not supplementary question. Okay, but not supplementary question. This is also very important. The member of the council were allowed to ask. They were empowered to ask questions. Okay, they were empowered to ask questions. They were empowered to discuss on budget. They were empowered to discuss on annual financial statement called budget. Okay, but they were not empowered to move resolution. Look here, the member of council were empowered by this act to ask question, but they were not allowed to ask supplementary question. Okay. Now the members were empowered to discuss budget, but they were not empowered to move resolution or to divide the house in respect of any financial question. Okay, they had no right. They had a right to discuss on the budget, but they were not right. They had no right to move any resolution against the budget, or they were not empowered to divide house on financial matters, financial questions. This is also very important. Good morning to all of you, those who are joining late. Okay, so this is also very important. Not only enlarge the function of the, these are very, very important for pre-examination. You will not get any question from mains. Only 1909 Act, 1919 Act and 1935 Act. Now out of these three Act, question can be asked in mains from the Government of India Act, the Council Act 1919, 1909 and 1919 Act and 1935 Act. Okay? But you will not get any mains question from these sections or the previously act we have discussed, the previous act, whatever we have discussed. You will not get any mains question. But these things are very important. Okay? By the Act of 1892, the election, the principle of election was adopted. Okay? Second was, earlier, the members were not allowed to ask question. They were not allowed to discuss on budget. But these two things are very important. Okay? Now we are heading towards the parliamentary processes. Okay? Because these things are asking of questions, discussion on budget is a part of parliamentary process. Okay? So look, so the most important feature of this act was India was heading by this act. This act proved India was heading towards parliamentary system. This line is also very important. Okay? Because asking of question, before that there was a legislative council was there, central legislative council was there, provincial assembly was there, but the members were not allowed to ask any question in the house. They were not allowed to discuss on budget. These two rights they got, but the right was very limited. How limited? They had a right to ask question, but not supplementary question. Means what? They had a right to ask only one question, and if any question arises from that question, they were not allowed. Here, in the second provision, they were empowered to discuss budget, but they were not allowed to move any resolution or to divide the house on financial matter. Now, all these rights are we found in our parliamentary system. But remember one thing, these two lines are very important. Why? Proved. These two lines, these two statements or these two provisions is proving that India was started heading towards the parliamentary system. Okay? I hope it is clear to all of you. Okay, and remember one thing, one point is also important. They had a right to ask question. Okay, but the question was related to not external matter, only the question related to public interest. Okay, and 6 days prior notice is required. 6 days prior notice, only internal matter, public interest, not on the external matters. This is also very important, but you all have to know, the members got the right to ask question, okay, but not supplementary question, and the question was related to internal public interest, and to ask question they had to take prior permission from the house by giving notice, and that the period of notice should not less than 6 days. Okay, empowered the parliament, empowered the members to discuss on budget, but they had no right to move resolution against the budget, or they had no right to divide the house. Okay, legislature on the matter of finance. Okay, I hope it is clear to all of you. Any problem? So I'm just concluding. Indian Council Act, the purpose of this act was to enlarge. The purpose of this act was, the provision was first to enlarge the Governor General Council, okay, by addition of not less than 10 and not more than 16 members. Okay, since the Governor General Council was enlarged, automatically this enlarged the Central Legislative Assembly. Second point was, it also enlarged the provincial government, provincial assembly. Third, the principle of election was adopted by the process, by this act, but the election word was missing from this act. Okay, and those who were elected, okay, those who were elected were also not called as a elected representative, but nominees of governor. Okay, and also not only enlarged the size of the councils, but also enlarged the function, empowered the members to ask question, to discuss on budget, but the power was very, very, very limited. Okay, is it clear to all of you? Is it clear? Okay, I want answer from all of you. Is it clear to all of you? Okay. Okay, tell me, by which act Indians were allowed to enter in public services? Tell me, by which act empowered the Indians to enter in public service, and what was the eligibility? I want answer from all of you. Which act empowered the Indians? Very good, 1833 Act. And what was the eligibility? What was the eligibility? No, Sonali, it was not 1853. By the Act of 1853, competitive examination was started. Competitive examination was started. Yes, Umar Mir is very good. Fitness, those who were fit, just like that. Today there is a lot of in eligibility criteria, you will get age or like that. So there was also one word was mentioned, that was called fitness. Very good. Not physical fitness. Only fitness word was there. Fitness in this age of fitness can be age group, can be qualification. Okay, not physical fitness, only fitness. Sayyid Ifra. Very good. Competitive examination was started and a committee was formed under to implement the competitive examination process. Under, I want answer, under which official a committee was formed to introduce the idea of competitive examination? I want answer. I want answer from all of you. By which act? By which act? Very good, Lord Macaulay. Very good. Now, I want one question is, I want answer of one question. Look, I want answer. By which act the colonization of India started? Colonization of India started. By which act colonization of India? It is said that this act was responsible behind, no, wrong. Behind the colonization of India. Munir, you are wrong. Colonization of India. Which act is considered as, no, not 1858. Okay, tell me, by which act the Europeans were allowed to enter in India? They were allowed to acquire property, land, wealth in India. By which act Europeans were allowed? I want answer. By which act? All, very good, 1833 Act. And when Europeans were allowed to acquire, they were allowed to acquisition of land, wealth, property in India, and this was the beginning of colonization of India. Okay? Now, I want answer. By which act the Indian trade, the trade of India was thrown open for the British nationals and British and other companies of Britain? Which act? By which act Indian trade was thrown open for other European, other British company? Okay, 1813. Good. Now, by which act dual government system was abolished? By which act dual government system was abolished? Yes, Charter Act was responsible behind the opening of Indian trade. Okay, trade of India for the other European British company. By which act the dual government system was abolished? Very good, Good Governance Act. Good Governance Act means the Act of 1858. By which act the dual government system was introduced? By which act dual government system was introduced? Now very good, Pitt's India Act. Now next is Morley-Minto reform. Okay, Morley-Minto reform. Yes, Saris, you are right. Cephali, you are right. Sonal also. Now Morley-Minto reform or the Council Act 1909. Okay, Morley-Minto reforms. Okay, 1909, or this Morley-Minto reform is also known as Indian Council Act. Indian Council Act 1909. Okay, Morley was the Secretary of State for India. Okay, and Minto was the Viceroy of India. Okay, so the name, see, this act was named after the two prominent personality, Morley. Okay, John Morley, he was the Secretary of State for India, and Lord Minto II, he was the Viceroy of India at that time. Okay, so this reform is also known as the Indian Council Act. Okay, now what were the provisions? Okay, the first provision was the size of, okay, the size of both Central Legislative Council or Assembly. This is also known as Imperial Legislative Assembly, and the Provincial Legislative Assembly or Council. Both was enlarged. Okay, not only the size of these two institutions were enlarged, but their function was also increased. Okay, so the first point was the size of, by this reform, the size of Central Legislative Council or Imperial Legislative Council. Okay, it is also called as Imperial Legislative Council or Assembly. Okay, and Provincial Legislative Assembly. The size as well as the function, the size was enlarged and the function was increased. Okay, now second point, the Governor General Council was also enlarged. Okay, earlier there were 16 members, but now it was increased to 60 members. Okay, so not only, what was the first point? This enlarged the Central Legislative Council and Provincial Legislative Council. Okay, and also increase the function. And second point is this act, this reform enlarged the Governor General Council. Earlier there were 16 members in the Governor General Council. Okay, and this 16 member, after the passage of this act, the number was increased to 60. This is very important point. Okay, the number was increased, but look here, now the numbers are important. Okay, Before that, the number was not very important. But now, after this reform, you all have to learn the numbers which are very important. Because after this act, the bicameral legislature will form. By 1919 Act, bicameral legislature system was introduced, and this was the beginning. So Morley-Minto reform, by this reform, the Governor General Council was enlarged from 16 to 30, 16 to was raised from 60 to 16 to 60. Okay. Now, the Central Legislative Council, okay, Central Legislative Council was also enlarged, and there were 69 members in this. We all know the enlargement of Governor General Council also enlarged the Central Legislative Council. It was also enlarged number, and after enlargement, its the total number of members of this Central Legislative Council became 69. Okay, out of this 69, 37 were official member and 32 were non-official members. Okay, so remember one thing, the first point was that this act enlarged the size of Central Legislative Assembly as well as Provincial Legislative Assembly. Governor General Council was also enlarged. Okay, and it was raised, the number was raised from 16 to 60. Earlier there were 16 members in the Governor General Council, but now this number was increased to 60. Okay, Central Legislative Council was also enlarged, and the total member after the passage of this act was 69. Okay, out of the 69 members, 37 were official members. Official means those who belongs from civil services and military services, and 32 were non-official. Generally, these members were nominated by, some member were nominated and some member were elected. Okay, so this is, now I hope it is clear. The first 2 points, this 16, earlier before this act, the Governor Council had 16 members. This number was increased to 60. Okay, and when this number was increased, this was also increased. It moved to 69. Okay, now the next was this act also increased, okay, also empowered, increased the power and function of the members, power and functions of the members of the assemblies. Okay, first, by 1892 Act, the member of Central Legislative Assembly got right to discuss. Okay, they empowered to discuss on budget, but they were not empowered to move resolution. But by this act, the members not only got the right to discuss the budget, but they also got right to move resolution. Okay, they also got right to move resolution against the financial matter, or resolution on financial matter. Okay, before the approval of budget, okay, the members got right to move resolution. This is the most important thing. Okay? The members were also not only empowered to ask question, okay, on internal matter, on the matter of public welfare, but they also empowered to ask supplementary question which was not this right was not available to the members by the Act of 1892. But by this act, the members of Central Assembly was not only got the right to discuss, but they also got right to move resolution before the passage of budget. Okay. Second most important point, the members had also the right to ask supplementary questions. Okay, supplementary question, and this power was not available to them before this act. Okay, this is also very important. Okay, now, so, and the third next important factor was the Governor General or the Viceroy. Okay, the Governor General in Council. Okay, means the Viceroy and other members, which has how many members? 60 members. The Governor General in Council was empowered to create Executive Council. Executive Council for Bengal. This is the most important point. Okay? Means this act empowered Governor General in Council to form or to create Executive Council for Bengal. Okay? And for the Lieutenant Governor provinces. For Bengal and Lieutenant Governor province. Those province which was under Lieutenant Governor. Okay. So this act empowered the Governor General in Council to create Executive Councils for Bengal and for those provinces which were under Lieutenant Governor. This point is also very, very, very important. Okay? Very important. Now, the most important provision of this act was separate electorate system was introduced. Okay? Separate electorate system was introduced for the first time. Okay? And separate electorate system. Okay? And this system was introduced for Muslims. Okay? Muslims were given the right of separate electorate. Means in future the Muslim candidates representative would be chosen from the Muslim population. So separate electorate system was, okay, this separate electorate system is also known as communal electorate system. Communal electorate system. Okay, and a separate electorate was formed after this act. Okay, communal electorate system was introduced and the Muslims were given separate representation. Okay, separate representation. Separate electorate system and Muslims were given separate representation, or this separate electorate system is also known as communal electorate system. Okay, so this was the most important because according to some historians, this was the beginning of the two-nation theory. Okay, so the separate electoral system or separate franchise, or we can say that communal electoral system was introduced. Muslims were granted that separate electorate power system. Okay, now apart from Muslims, other groups were also got this election system, and they were the Chamber of Commerce, okay, and apart from that, universities, presidency corporation, universities. Communal election was only for Muslim, but separate electoral system was also for Chamber of Commerce, universities, okay, corporation, presidency corporation, and the landlords. Presidency, corporation, and next was fourth was landlords. Okay, so the separate electoral system was introduced. Okay, this separate electoral system was given to Muslim, and since it was given only to Muslim, that's why it is called communal electoral system. Okay, means on the basis of religion. And apart from Muslims, also other group also got this separate electoral system, and that was the Chamber of Commerce, university, presidency corporation, and landlords. Okay, when we will discuss about 1919 Act, it was also extended to this system was extended to other groups also. Okay, so this was the most important feature. These were the provisions of, okay, these were the provisions of, okay. Now this is the most important. The next is, this was the first act okay, Indians were got right to be the part of Governor General in Council. Okay, so this is also very important. Okay, this act allowed the inclusion of Indian in Governor General in Council, and the first Indian who was included in Governor General Council was Satyendra Prasanna Sinha. Satyendra Prasanna Sinha, or also known as Lord Sinha. He was the first Indian who was appointed in Governor General Council. Okay, so this Morley Minto reform is famous for 2 or 3 things. First, separate electorate system. Okay, separate electorate system for Muslims, that was called communal electoral system and other groups. And this act also allowed the inclusion of Indians. Okay, first time by this act, Indian became the part of Governor General in Council, and Satyendra Prasanna Sinha was the first Indian who was appointed in Governor General in Council. So the inclusion of Indian in Governor General Council was also one of the important feature. Okay, not only this is important, the other important point was this was the first act that allowed the inclusion of Indians in Indian Council. Okay, the Council of Secretary of State for India. Okay, inclusion in the Council of Secretary of State for India. Now tell me one thing, where this council was located? I want answer. By which act this council was formed and where it was located? I want answer from all of you. I want answer from all of you. By which act the Secretary of State and its council, which was known as the Indian Council, was formed, and where it was formed? It was formed in London, yes. And by which act? By 1858 Act. Very good. Okay. And who was the first Secretary of State? Who was the first Secretary of State for India? Who was the first Secretary of State for India? I want answer. Who was the first Secretary of State for India? Henry? Yes, Henry Stanley. Very good. Now, so two important provision of this moral and mentor reform was, first, the Indians were allowed. Okay, allowed. This act allowed the Indians, allowed the inclusion of Indians. Where? In Governor General in Council. This act also allowed the inclusion of Indians in the Council of Secretary of State for India. Okay, and the first member were two Indians were the first who were included in the state of Council of Secretary of State. First was K.G. Gupta and Sir Syed Hussain Bilgrami. So these were K.G. Gupta and Syed Hussain Bilgrami were the two Indians who were appointed in the Council of Secretary of State for India. Okay, two Indians were nominated, Syed Hussain Bilgrami and K.G. Gupta. Okay, so this was the Morley Minto reform. Okay, so now I'm going to conclude The first most important thing was the enlargement provision. First provision was enlargement of Governor General Council. Okay, earlier there were 16 members, it was increased to 60. Okay, Central Legislative Council or Imperial Legislative Council was also increased, and there were 69 members. Okay, the members were also empowered to discuss budget, to move resolution. The members were also got right to ask questions, supplementary questions. Now second most important thing was separate electorate system was introduced, for Muslims and for other communities like landlords or like universities or for the presidency, corporations, etc. And apart from that, the other important provisions were the inclusion of Indians in Governor General Council, inclusion of Indians in the Council of Secretary of State. Lord Sinha was the first Indian who was nominated for Governor General in Council, and KG Gupta and Sir Syed Hussain Bilgrami. These two Indians were the first who were nominated for the Council of Secretary of State for India. So this is what. So we have completed the two act. Tomorrow we will discuss about 1919 Act and 1935 Act. I hope it is clear to all of you. So I am going to wind this class. We'll meet again tomorrow. Thank you and take care.